nuances, two or three genres. It is a horror thriller film, but it definitely has a sci-fi twist element to it. A lot of people that I've seen it after its premiere also really kind of appreciate it because it's a classic relationship drama. It toes the line between being a drama, being a sci-fi thriller, being a classic horror slasher as well. Yeah, Sinister is definitely the tone, but there is hope to it too, which is neat.
Zach, I know we've seen consciously a good lot of movies do that car element, that one-to-one dynamic, and it's done in the past, and it's sort of an intriguing concept in terms of conversations in a car, interactions in a car, and it dare I say shooting a moving car scenes because dare I say it's something that happens with people and 90% of our lives, maybe on a weekly basis, maybe 40 or 50% of most people's who use the normal mode of transport is commuting in cars. And it's a different aspect to start to shoot the conversations that go on in a car because sometimes they're intimate, sometimes they're private, sometimes they're open conversations. But it's a hard thing to gasp in terms of what goes on. And what was that like, sort of shooting to reenact those type of scenes?
Yeah, being in the car is an interesting location because you are so limited physically. So it really becomes about the dialogue. And luckily, the writers of the film, I think, really had a really good grasp on relationship dialogue and character dynamic dialogue. But the time in the car, I think, is really the time in which the two main characters, my character Reid and Whit's character, Olivia, it's informative for the audience to kind of understand their relationship and why it's not perfect and why why we're going to care about them later when things start to go awry and they kind of end up in this endless circle of hell, so to speak. So the stuff in the car, even though it wasn't quote unquote active and physically fun, as an actor to shoot, it was some of the most important work I think that we did because it allows the audience into their world and knowing what their characters are and what their problems are and what their goals are, and it allows the audience, I think, to root for them too in a way, because as the film progresses and there are roadblocks put in place impeding their survival, you gotta have something to latch onto as the audience, right? And I think the time in the car builds that opportunity for character and audience.
So we're sort of creating the tension, we're creating the atmosphere, we're building the sort of suspense. And dare I say, when things go awry, does the pace of the movie quicken? Does it tempo? Are we dealing with slow, 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 and then we're going on a slope and to a sort of crescendo in terms of the pace? Does it really intensify?
Yeah, absolutely. Almost feels like the first quarter of the film is a drama, and then all of a sudden the film completely shifts in terms of tone, and it becomes this burn of essentially horror and sci-fi thriller tone. It really builds, and by the midpoint of the film, it's going kind of lightning quick, and I do think most people are on the edge of their seat. So it changes quite dynamically, as you spoke to before the midpoint, but it's a really cool turn because as the audience, I believe you're watching a couple kind of disagree about a lot of stuff and kind of get lost, and then things turn really quickly and it becomes pretty intense.
Yeah. And Zach, in terms of drive back, in terms of we'll talk about now a bit about the production. Where did you sort of shoot and in terms of location, in terms of start to finish? Were we talking about budget wise? Was it in terms of production low budget? Had you a bit of money to work with? Were we talking 3 to 5 weeks or were we talking longer than that?
Yeah, you're right in the sweet spot there. I think you understand the genre well. Yeah, we shot for about 5 weeks, maybe with a few extra pickup days down the road. And we filmed in and around the Yosemite foothills here in the kind of central California. So Fresno would be the main city, and it would be essentially about an hour to 2 hours outside of Fresno, California, into the Yosemite foothills. So it was an incredible shooting location. And I mean, when you shoot in those locations, obviously the cost of filming is quite significantly reduced because you're in a lot of free places. The woods are, pretty accessible. So yeah, in terms of budget, I'm actually not super privy to what it was. I'm not a producer on the film, j just an actor. So, but the film looks. I can't say they spent $10 million on it, but the film looks like a $10 million movie in my opinion. I mean, they're really incredibly talented. The production team behind it, Tremendum Pictures, is wildly proficient in this genre and making it look incredible.
And how did this opportunity land on your doorstep? Was it the traditional talent agent manager got a script, put it your way, and you self-tape for it, and or did you do auditions, or did someone from the movie team reach out to you, or had you worked with someone in the past from the film, or how did this come about for Zack Gold?
Yeah, so it's kind of yes to both. The production team behind it, Tremendum, did a horror drama thriller about 4 years prior called Held. And I had played a supporting role in Held, and that came about just through my agent getting me an audition. I self-taped for it, booked the role kind of the old traditional way through auditioning. And then having established a relationship with them, with the producers, they came back to me, 4 years later, and with the script, asked me to read it and get my thoughts and interest on it. And then it was just essentially like a direct offer. So there wasn't really an audition process to this film. So it's kind of a classic example of how this industry is relationship based as many are, but one audition may procure 3 or 4 jobs for someone such as myself.
And how does it feel, Zach, when a project goes international? I know it's fantastic for an actor when a project, a film or movie or TV series goes mainstream on cable TV in America or and Canada as such. But when it goes outside those domains, when it travels oceans and it's seen by different people in different parts of the world, or it's dubbed in different languages, is there a sense of an excitement to that in terms of there's a whole different audience, dare I say, a million miles away looking on at something that she spent 3 to 5 weeks working hard on and in the middle of Yosemite, in the middle, dare I say, a pun, in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a very, very apropos way of putting it. It's an amazing feeling, when you work in independent film and you don't know what the end result is going to be. You don't necessarily you're not guaranteed anything when you step on the set for the first day. To sit back a few years after filming is done and know that it's now playing in select theaters internationally, in Ireland, which is a place that I hold dear to my heart. I have Irish heritage and I've traveled to Ireland before, so makes me very happy and definitely makes the process even more rewarding. There were a lot of cold night shoots, where we're running on fumes, and having for more eyes to see it and ideally appreciate it is definitely the way we get paid. It's far more important than the amount of money that we make as actors. It's at this point it's still all about just exposure and connecting with audiences and enjoying the process.
And before we come on to talk a bit about that Irishness which you touched on there, just one final thing in terms of about the movie, in terms of the horror aspect, in terms of those paranormal events that we see in terms of the movie. I imagine you're shooting out in Yosemite and some of the effects that we've seen. I imagine green screen wasn't really much in play in this. So in terms of the props, in terms of the stunt team, in terms of the special effects that were in display. Were there some things rigged out there in terms of stunts and in terms of horror effects that maybe did you look on and say that's very creative, innovative, where the actors could see with their own eyes, they didn't have to imagine, which is a good part of Hollywood there today. It's for actors, it's about imagination given the green screen evolution.
Yeah, definitely. We had the opportunity to work with some real rigged stunts. But then we were also called upon to use our imagination. A lot of, not to give too much away to people who have yet to see it. There's a few stunts where there's blood dripping down the car and falling from trees, and a lot of that was that done in CGI afterwards. But there was a lot of stuff that we did too that was real. A lot of the fire elements that you'll see, especially on a specific character, were done by a stunt team. So it was incredible to have the opportunity to be able to truly react to real things that were there. So it was a little bit of both, but always harder to procure a reaction to something that's completely, in your imagination.
And Zach, you mentioned there about visiting Ireland in the past. You might touch on that a bit more.
Yeah, yeah. My wife and I were married in 2014, and before we had a child, tried to take a couple of international vacations, and Ireland was high on our list because we both have Irish heritage. So we spent a couple weeks there over the holidays in 2016, I believe. Started in Dublin and we drove to Galway, and then we drove down through Ring of Kerry, and I ended up in Cork, which we all thought was amazing. So had a really brilliant time there. Ireland is, it really feels like unlike anything we have in the United States. It's just so naturally lush and beautiful, and almost otherworldly in terms of and the way that the country is formed physically. I love the people too. I really, really, really could get behind the bar culture and the music element of people gathering at the end of the day and having a pint and listening to live music. We could use a lot more of that here in the States.
And Zach, I do believe you have other projects in the pipeline that you might briefly touch upon that might be coming our way later in the year or early in 2025.
Yeah, luckily, post the Hollywood strike, a few things have come my way. I'm on the current season for just one episode of Law and Order SVU. So if anyone watches Law and Order, I'm in, I believe, the second episode here of the 26th season of Law and Order SVU. And then next year, a new series will be coming to Amazon Prime called Ballard. It is in the world of Bosch, which is a series that was popular on Amazon. Ballard is a new iteration from one of the characters on Bosch, and I play a role in one of the episodes of Ballard. So hopefully people have a chance to check those out as well.
Okay, and finally, Zack Gold will turn it over to you now for the final 30 seconds. You might enlighten all our audience that are travelling to theatres in Limerick, Galway, Cork, Dublin, and our colleagues even in Northern Ireland who might be travelling to Belfast, why they should go, not tonight, or maybe this airs tomorrow, it's in cinemas tonight, about to see, to select movies, theatres, to see Drive Back in cinema, and tell them, Zach, when they arrive at their movie seat, what's in store for them?
When you arrive at your movie seat, for one, thank you so much for supporting independent horror films. I think that seeing this film in a theater is a paramount experience. It's incredibly, incredibly well sound designed and well edited, and it really does feel kind of like a blockbuster thriller. So I think you'll be in store for some really great technical filmmaking that doesn't always translate to smaller screens. So I applaud you and thank you for putting your derriere in the good old movie theater seat. So thank you.